Today in my league, we've drawn the 2019 Raptors. Enjoy the gameplay in the background because this was a good one, and the time marker for the My League section of this video is in the comment section and in the description. Steph Curry as the greatest point guard of all time. I want to read you guys something before we kick this discussion off. It says that Steph will be this generation's Bill Russell and that he will be slandered in the future for playing with a lot of great players, and that in the future, hell maybe even now, people will question how good he really was. I think that was beautifully said, and that was actually one of the takes from the unpopular opinions thread. I had it left over from yesterday, didn't get to it, didn't really mean to get to it because I touched on this a bit and I wanted to save it for today because I wanted to talk about the very real possibility that Steph Curry does become the greatest point guard of all time and what that would actually take. So the unanimous greatest point guard of all time right now, it's not really even a debate, it's Magic Johnson. 3 finals MVPs, 5 championships, 3 regular season MVPs, arguably the greatest passer of all time. Dude was like a 6'9" point guard. He's like a small forward playing point guard. And this was back in the time before we were talking about positionless basketball. Won the championship and finals MVP as a whole ass rookie. He started at center in game 7. He did a lot of things that were just unheard of. So we're talking about what a player, specifically Steph, would need to pass him up as the greatest point guard of all time. Because from what I can find and from what it looks like, it seems that everyone has Steph around the 2nd or 3rd greatest point guard right now. And I'm going to ask you a question that goes back to the tweet I read earlier. Can Steph Curry become the greatest point guard of all time as a part of these super teams that he's had since 2017 now? I'm not going to say just with Kevin Durant as his teammate, because if it was Steph and KD but then you had Klay Thompson leave and DeMarcus Cousins leave, then it's a duo. Superstars are allowed to play in duos. That happens all the time. Magic had it with Kareem. But as long as he has KD and then Klay Thompson, who is up there with the greatest shooters of all time, and then you add DeMarcus Cousins to it, and then Draymond Green, who is not having the best year of his career right now, but we know what he's normally about. But if the core of this team stays together, will we be able to look at him as the greatest point guard of all time? And I thought that tweet was such a great place to start because the thing you end up wondering is it really fair for an all-time great to basically fast-track his way to a certain position by having a team that's unbeatable? So in other words, most of us know that Steph is great. We know that regardless of a Kevin Durant or a Klay, we know what Steph brings to the table. We know that he can make players around him better. We know he's great regardless. But that greatest of all time position, that's another step up. And you start thinking, well, how many superstars throughout history could have just finessed their way to be the greatest at their position if they were already individually great, but then they become part of this team that we all know from start to finish, from the very start of every season, that they're going to win the championship, because if there's no chemistry issues and there's no injury issues, there's no way that they should lose. Like, I get this feeling to be the greatest at your position, there's like this rite of passage that these players got to go through. So I always bring up how Steph Curry's 2016 storyline was basically put on pause after Kevin Durant came to that team. What I'm referring to is that was the year where Steph Curry could really add to his legacy, right? That was a moment where he was the unanimous MVP, your team just broke the 96 Bulls regular season record led by you, and now you get to the situation where you're in the NBA Finals, you're on the verge of blowing a 3-1 lead and there's a game 7. LeBron shows up with the shits. He did what he had to do and that boosted his legacy infinitely that game. And Curry also had his chance. He had his chance for a moment there. He didn't get it. But I don't think he's had an opportunity for that type of moment since that happened, since 2016 happened. Because he did something that a lot of stars are just not willing to do. I don't know what Golden State does to their star players that allows them to just say, okay, I'm cool, I'll play whatever role I need to play, I'll take this amount of shots, and they can just all fit together, like no matter who comes there. I don't get that, but it works. And Steph allowed KD into his spotlight. KD has been winning the finals MVPs, they've become this juggernaut, and so since then there really hasn't been this opportunity for Steph like he had in 2016 to really take his legacy to a new height, because all that's happened for the last 3 years since Kevin Durant went there is what we expected to happen. They've lost 1 finals game, and they've only lost more than 1 game in a playoff series one time. Once. And I think when you start talking about these greatest of all time positions, the players that usually hold them had moments in very important times or through adversity where they subverted expectations. And I'm not talking about general expectations, like we know Steph Curry came into the league and he was small and he could shoot, so nobody thought he could be great, but then he did. I'm not talking about that. That's what makes him great, but the greatest of all time at your position. So Magic Johnson coming into the league as a rookie to win finals MVP and a championship, that subverts expectations. Hakeem Olajuwon, some people would consider him the greatest center of all time, right? The game where he took David Robinson's lunch money because they gave him the MVP and Hakeem felt he deserved it. Winning the championship as a 6th seed, and that was a repeat by the way, so they repeated as champions, but they were 6th seed that year. What I'm getting into is like the concept of moments right now, and when you think about the playoffs, you start to think in a situation where there is adversity, where there's extreme adversity to the point we don't know what's about to happen. How many moments do we have like that for Steph yet? In 2016, when the Thunder were about to beat Golden State Game 6, Klay Thompson took that moment. That's what I'm talking about right there, like those moments. You remember when Klay just like he set fire, and basically Steph played well that game too, don't get me wrong, but Klay, that was his moment. We know that it's Klay Thompson's game. And so something like Game 7 of that year in the NBA Finals, that was really where it was supposed to be like Steph's moment. And the problem is, I don't know how he can really have that moment with Kevin Durant as his teammate when they're the ones always expected to win, and they're expected to win by a wide margin, especially now that they have Cousins. They are always in front, they're always on top. In short, that super team is basically like a cushion. And so the argument that might come up since we're talking about Magic Johnson is we're gonna say, well, Magic Johnson had an all-time great team too. He had Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who also has an argument to be the greatest center of all time. You had James Worthy, Michael Cooper, like that was a great team. We're not gonna talk like the Lakers weren't always a really great team that's expected to be in the finals too, right? But I think the difference is that Magic Johnson came to the Lakers and became the man pretty much immediately. Not disregarding what Kareem did, but we think of Showtime's Lakers, we think about the catalyst of the Showtime Lakers, we think about where they were before they had Magic Johnson. Magic came to that team, took that shit over, and basically owned an entire era. For Steph, we absolutely can't discount the fact that a dynasty has been built around him, right? His gravity, his play style, what he does for that team, even though there's other stars on it. So that's why I don't just discount his championships and say they don't count for anything. But when we're talking about the greatest of all time at a position, in a moment where his team had failed under his leadership in 2016, he opened up that spotlight for Kevin Durant, which was another player of his stature, to come to that team, make them super, and KD has had all the finals MVPs since then. So that doesn't mean I'm not using the finals MVP like a lot of people use it, where if you didn't win the finals MVP, you just did not contribute. That part isn't true. But so far, there's still that debate of we know Steph is the most important player on that team, but who's the best? And then there's the other line we have to draw where we say, okay, the Showtime Lakers were great, one of the greatest teams of all time, but they were not what the Warriors are now. We're talking about 2 certified MVP type players, 3 players that can drop 50, 2 of the greatest shooters of all time. Like, come on, this is something we have not seen before. The Showtime Lakers, as great as they were still vulnerable. They could still lose. They did lose. They had an equal on the other side of the conference. The Golden State Warriors do not have an equal in the NBA. So for Steph to be seen as the greatest point guard of all time, I'm thinking a few things. First of all, I'm thinking that Golden State has got to shed Kevin Durant. I just don't see where you see the things that I was explaining up to this point. I don't see how he's going to accumulate some of the necessary parts to become the greatest point guard of all time with this cushion where we're all basically unanimous on the fact that this Golden State team should never lose. If Kevin Durant re-signs there this summer and they're able to keep that core long term, the expectations will always be the same. We're going to say if there's no injuries and there's no chemistry issues, Golden State should never lose. That should never be a thing. Aside from the part where I guess you get tired from going to the finals every year because Steve Kerr doesn't think his Bulls could have, Michael's Bulls could have had the 8 championships straight. He doesn't think that was possible. So other than that, we're thinking Golden State should never lose. Once and if they do shed KD this summer, or KD leaves them because they're not going to push him away, they want him there. But if Kevin Durant does go do something else, then Steph is in the hot seat for the 2020 season because everything we've saw in the last 3 years again has been with that cushion. And again, we know how great he is. I am not at all taking away from his greatness. Even with the super team, I still agree that he's up there with that 2nd, 3rd ranking of greatest point guard of all time. I agree. But if that cushion is gone next year, and Golden State starts looking suspect, and they're not contending for a title, or they go and they lose, people are gonna really come around and realize what I'm saying here. That's gonna make it harder for him, because then people are gonna say, well, he won all these championships and everything was so great when they had this team that couldn't lose, and then that team left. Wait, okay, how great was he really then? So I think in the event that that does happen, Steph has got to show out next season. He's gonna have to finish what he started in 2016. To pass Magic, he is going to at least need a Finals MVP. That's gonna have to happen. You know, Magic, he's got 3 of them. When you get Finals MVP, again, I always try to stress that is not what people try to make it, where, oh, you carried everybody, nobody else contributed. People, they really go crazy on that, but it definitely does speak to what you did in that series. So every year so far, it's been debatable. Oh, maybe Steph could have got it in 2015, but Iguodala's impact on LeBron James, for people who actually know what happened there, yeah, it was pretty big. Oh, in 2018, maybe he should have got it, but he didn't because he played one bad game. Like, it's always debatable. Magic Johnson had some final series where it was not debatable. He was the Finals MVP. He was the most important player in that series on the biggest stage. Steph has got to get himself one of those to pass Magic. And kind of going along with what we've been talking about, he's got to win a championship that you just can't dispute. People dispute 2015. They're going to dispute every championship he's won with Kevin Durant or this super team. They're always going to have something to say about it. It might seem unfair for 2015 because, again, you just kind of play who's in front of you, but I think the problem is that in 2015 they were playing who was in front of them, but they didn't crush them the way that people needed them to. Golden State, once Kyrie Irving went down, I think for people to not dispute that title, they would have always said, oh, Kyrie and Love were out, but they would have really needed, led by Steph, they would have really needed to dominate the Cavaliers, which they didn't. So with what he has now, he can always be great, like I said. But if you're going to put him in that greatest of all time position, Magic has championships that are not disputed. But as far as just like play style though, Steph has just got to keep doing what he's doing now. He's a very unselfish player, greatest shooter of all time, revolutionized shooting. We all know what he brings to the court, so as long as there's just no dramatic drop-off, and reading about what a hard worker he is, there's no reason for there to be a drop-off. He's just got to continue on that track and he'll be fine. The way he plays on the court is really a lot of the reason why, even though he's got this super team cushion that people don't like, it looks like they're starting to be willing to overlook that because they know what he brings when they watch him. So I think I've said everything I can say here. You leave your thoughts in the comment section. But this Cavs and Raptors game you've been watching is actually this is my 4th game of the season. So the Rockets was the first game that you saw yesterday. I was forced to skip the Suns game, Steve Nash Suns. I did play them and I beat them pretty badly, but my computer was having problems when it recorded the video. Footage came out all laggy, so I destroyed it. And then there was the Cavs and 94 Nuggets. I played that last, and the 94 Nuggets, they are so bad. That was such a boring game. I destroyed them. However, the 19 Raptors, yes, if you were curious, I did say this is a Legends League, but I also took some of today's best teams, like the 19 best teams on paper, because I'm about to say the 19 Celtics. They're not one of the best teams right now, but the teams that are on paper that are really good, I took a lot of them in, and the 19 Raptors are one of them. And this could easily be an Eastern Conference Finals matchup, or if I even make it that far. Basically, what you get in real life with them is even better here because Kawhi's not resting. This is one of the most challenging teams I've ever played in my league over the last 3 years because obviously they haven't been in here. And I just cannot dominate them or physically dominate them the way I can a lot of the other teams. Obviously, this has a lot to do with Kawhi Leonard. And just like in real life, he is LeBron's biggest headache. You'll see towards the end of the footage, LeBron gets the Gatorade sign because Kawhi is wearing him down the whole game, and plus LeBron is also defending Kawhi because I can't let somebody else do that. So his energy is kind of zapped. I could not just go off on this team. I cannot put Kawhi Leonard in the post with LeBron. He's too good of a defender. And this Toronto team just overall, damn, they're good. It's like I said last video, the teams that I just can't have for lunch, these are the ones that have athletes, they're quick, and they can basically dish it back. And the Raptors, they check off all those boxes. Their big men are very versatile and fast and athletic. They can switch everything on screens with no problem, which is something that I can really kill other teams with, but with the Raptors, you're like switching between Pascal Siakam and Ibaka and Kawhi Leonard, so it doesn't really help. And Kawhi does exactly what he does in real life, just very silently bust your ass. And yeah, he actually outplayed me. He outplayed LeBron this game. I was able to keep it very close though. You see right here, look at that, Kawhi Leonard poking the ball away. I could not get him in the post. LeBron's got the Gatorade sign. Gonna get a screen by Ilgauskas here, but god damn it, Gooden is standing in the corner. Siakam was able to get all the way into the paint. I do not get a good shot off here. That is a contest. They played perfect defense. Ilgauskas, look at this. Everyone's tired. The whole team is tired. But I'm gonna strip Danny Green and it falls right into the hands of Ibaka. Ain't that some shit? Look at that, man. I was down by 3 points. That was a very heads up play by LeBron James, and it was basically over from this point. I was already having a hard time scoring. Get in here, Gooden with the rebound. Really needed a 3 here, but they've got the perimeter so guarded. Lowry had a good contest there, and Kawhi snatches the rebound. That is it. That is game. Back in my younger days, this would have cost me a controller right here. This was the stuff this was the stuff as a kid where I used to accuse 2K of cheating, but that was just very unlucky. Had a very heads up play with LeBron James, and I just got unfortunate there. So the final score turned out to 118-111. And if you check out the score box, you can see here LeBron James only had 22 points, 10 of 27, 0 of 4 from 3-pointers. It was actually Chris Paul leading the way here. I was able to get some good plays against Lowry, so he had 25 points and 8 assists. Ilgauskas did not block any shots this game, so that didn't help anything. And yeah, when LeBron James has under 30 points, consider that me being shut down, because I've been saying for years, 07 LeBron is 2K's best kept secret. And so yeah, if I don't have 35 points, I was shut down. On the other hand, Kawhi Leonard did have 30 points, and very efficiently too. He was 10 of 13, 4 rebounds, 4 assists. Kyle Lowry is a lot harder to defend than I thought. I really underestimated him. He had 25 points, 7 assists. But hey, I've got a crack at the Raptors next game. This was a home and home, so I am going to Toronto next, and you will see that gameplay footage on the next video. Remember, if you want to keep up with the My League footage, because it is kind of scattered around in some of these commentary videos, I have a playlist made specifically for videos that I do have that gameplay in. So if you go to the Legends My League playlist, they will always be there. Hit the like button, comment, and sub if you enjoyed, and hit the bell next to my name if you want notifications on the next video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.